This is part 2 of Illustrator Basics, and we're going to move on from just working with shapes and find ways to combine them into different things that we might want to use for logos, etc. So we ended up in the last tutorial looking at how we could manipulate shapes and the anchor points. Now we want to combine shapes so that they make unique symbols that we can use in the project. So we have here this little kind of set of ears or what have you, and something that might look like a TV. So we're going to combine them just together to make something kind of new. Okay, just before I go on, you'll notice that in the layers palette in Illustrator we're working on one layer, and there are 5 objects on that layer. Just so you know, Illustrator does have its own layer system, but they're all tucked in underneath that layer, so they're kind of mini layers if you like, and each object is put on a layer as you make it. So the object that we made first was this box, which is at the bottom of the stack, so they just get stacked on top of each other, and the object that we made last was the ears, obviously, which are now on top. Now you can reorder the stack by changing the order in here, which is fairly straightforward. It's just like Photoshop, but you can also go to the object menu and you'll see there's an arrange function in there which allows you to do the same thing. This is kind of quicker because you'll notice also that each arrange function has a shortcut, so Shift, Command and square bracket will be send to back, and as we do that the little ears get stacked underneath. So you can quite quickly restack things as you need to on the page, and everything you need to know about the objects or be able to do to them is stacked in the object menu. So everything we use as an object, it's not difficult to remember that something to do with objects is going to be in the object menu. Okay, so we're just going to delete some of these shapes quickly, just so that we're left with the 2 things that we want. Here we go. I'm going to just resize these little this little shape so that we have something that looks more like an aerial, and put it in place like so. We're then just going to select both objects together. You can do that just by using the selection tool, the black arrow. Just click and drag around both things and they get selected at the same time. Turn the stroke off. You can see that blends it together nicely. And then we're just going to use the rounded rectangle, put a new shape in, maybe make it white so it looks a bit like glass, and then move it in and rotate it so that it looks like a TV front. Now this is by no means a well considered and finished article, but it just gives you an idea about what you can do. Okay, so we have our little TV icon that's going to form our logo start. And what we need to do is to somehow make it one object so that we can click and move it and do new things with it. And because it's 3 things, you'll often find that if you try and click and drag, you leave something behind. So what we can do is combine these objects, so glue them together if you like, which we call grouping. So if you select all of the objects again, as before, go into the object menu, you'll see there's an option called group, and that temporarily sticks your design together. Okay, so it's like linking in Photoshop, grouping. Okay, so we've got that, and if you need to, you can just go back and ungroup them as and when you need to make an adjustment to a shape or something. Select it all again and go object group. Okay, so we now have something that looks more unique. It doesn't look like a basic set of shapes. It's forming our kind of logo. We might want to try and prototype this, so make copies of it and change the colour. Maybe in another one change the size of the aerial and compare them. Quite easy to do in Illustrator. You can just select the object and then click and drag. And as you're dragging, before you let go, hold down Alt. And you'll notice your arrowhead turns to a black and white arrow together, and you'll see as you let go it makes a copy. So we can work quite quickly at doing versions, so versioning our logo and just trying things out and comparing them, and that's quite a nice thing about Illustrator. It does these things for you, and you can work quite quickly. Now we can do that again, but we don't have to drag and hold Alt. We can just use Command and D on the keyboard, and it will repeat that function for us. So there we go. So that's quite useful. You can quite quickly build up a set of things that are in progress and compare them. Now with the Command and D function, we can also can use it in all sorts of ways. So it will remember the last thing that you did and it will repeat it. And so one useful thing you can do is rotate things and make patterns with Illustrator. It does that really well. I'll just show you how to do that, and then you can have a go for yourself. The pattern stuff and the repeat functions really come into their own when we use lines. You can make some quite interesting abstract kind of patterns with it, but it's just a fun thing to do. So here we've got the rotate tool just under the brushes. If you click that, you'll see that there's a crosshair that appears in the middle, a little green cross. I'm just going to place that at the bottom corner there, and then go to the opposite end of my shape and rotate it. Click on the shape and drag it, and you'll see it rotates around that point. Bearing in mind what we just did, I can then hold down as I'm dragging Alt. It'll make a copy for me. And the same process as before, just Command and D. And I can make something bordering on a sort of pattern. Now in this case it looks a bit odd. We wouldn't necessarily use TVs and what have you, but you can imagine with more simple shapes or lines, depending on where you put the rotate crosshair, you can do some nifty little things and create some patterns. Okay, final thing then, just another kind of trick that you might want to learn. We can do what we call a blend. And so here we have a TV. Let's just say that we want it to blend into a circle of a different colour. So I'm just going to choose yellow at this point. If we have the two objects sort of set apart and then select them both, we can go to the object menu and you'll see there's a blend menu. First we click blend options. It'll give you some basic presets. We want some specified steps, maybe 6 steps. Click OK. And then go back to the blend option and then make. And you'll find that your TV slowly over 6 steps turns into the shape that it's blended to. Again, this isn't thought out in any way, it's just showing you how this works. But you can get some interesting effects again between basic shapes, and also if you convert letters to objects and morph them from their letter shape to primitives, you can get some really nice kind of looking design. So something to think about.